Hi, I'm Josh Lambert, a product manager at GitLab for the memory team. And today I'd like to talk about what we plan to achieve in our 12.10 release, which will be shipping on April 22nd. The memory team is focused on a few key areas. The first one is we'll actually be working to uh, improve some of how we calculate the minutes and how those minutes correlate to public and private projects. And so you can see here we're working on introducing some shared minute factors, which can then be applied as a sort of a ratio of what percentage or what kind of multiplier can be used to tune the cost to what we charge on these different types of groups. And that'll give us a little more flexibility in how we manage our public and private and free services as it relates to CI minutes on GitLab.com. So that's a little more short-term project we're working on. We then also have some larger themes that we're working on across the group as well. The first is that we are continuing to make progress on Puma. Puma will be available as a generally available service in 12.9, and we're planning to continue to improve and iterate on Puma in 12.10 in preparation for it being opt-out in 13.0 in May. So a few things we're working on here, things like documentation, a blog post to get the word out and our experience on GitLab.com. Spoiler alert on the blog post, it's been very helpful. We were able to reduce our memory consumption by about 30 to 40% without having any impact on our latency. So we are very excited about Puma in general. And then we're doing a couple things to check some edge cases here before we enable it on by, on by default for everyone in that 13.0 timeframe. So that's what we got going on for Puma there. Again, just driving to completion so that we can have more people benefit from these improvements. We're also working to improve GitLab's own development practices so that we can help catch some less than desirable performance characteristics during the development phase itself before it ever even reaches an environment like staging, for example, or GitLab.com, let alone our self-managed customers. So we have three of these we're working through. For example, just kind of walk through them here. The first is that we want to help to improve some best practices as it relates to memory consumption so that we aren't attempting to read in the entirety of a single file into memory, but instead focusing on reading line by line by line, which should give us more constant scale of memory usage rather than a single big bulk load. We're also looking to improve the guidance and really nudge developers to use more efficient iterators. As you can see down below for some performance metrics, this actually really does matter, and there are small changes you can make that have some pretty significant performance differences. For example, each with index is actually quite slow, 30% slower than a simple index-based array access. So we are working to introduce these and within Rubicop and help to nudge our developers into better choices as far as how they relate to performance. Again, with some pretty simple changes here. Similarly, this is a bit of a stretch goal here as well in the same model where we can catch again some use cases that can introduce some performance regressions, if you will, in some cases, or less than desired performance characteristics. So that's some of the development practices. We're also continuing to finish up our work on import. We've done a lot of work on import in the last few months. This was a key theme for us, and we are handing this off to the import team to take over from here. And we are just doing a couple more things before it's fully transitioned off to that team, and they will take it from here. So you can see a little bit of this work around fixing some return codes and also some streaming serializers as well. Finally here, as far as what we're trying to achieve broadly is that we also want to make plan limits available for installations. What plan limits are is that it allows us to enable our self-managed customers to take advantage of the application limits that we've been introducing into the platform. Application limits are a way to limit certain types of user behavior so that it can prevent unintentional or intentional abuse, which could destabilize the service. So for example, a developer out there who's scripting against GitLab API, and they happen to hit some endpoint a large number of times. Now, the API will have some internal rate limiting, but there are some interesting use cases, for example, like previously, where someone can configure a really huge number of webhooks or some other types of degenerate use cases that they might not really intend to impact the service, but ends up happening. And so we've been going through and adding limits to these places within the code base. And right now you have to, it's only available on GitLab.com, but with this change here, we can make these plan limits available on the default plan, which is available for all of our customers and available in core as well. And so this will help to allow our users to take advantage of those kind of stability improvements and leverage them in their own installations as well. And these are also tunable. So what we'll do is we will ship the defaults that we ship on GitLab.com that have worked well for our user base there, and we'll make them the defaults. But if for some reason you have some use case where you need to have 50,000 webhooks and you have scaled out your hardware accordingly, then great, you can go ahead and you can tune these limits to your own needs, and therefore you can raise or lower them as you see fit. So this will be rolling out here shortly until the 10, so our customers can take advantage of them, which will be great. And with that, that covers off the major goals here that we're trying to achieve. We do have a few stretch goals allowed around including a little additional information. For example, in the usage ping around whether the customer is using Puma or Unicorn, again, just to help us get some sense of how that migration is happening. And so hopefully we can see a number of folks opting into Puma early as we prepare for opt-out, and then we can also get a sense of how that long tail of people who might be staying on Unicorn is or isn't moving over to Puma as we work on defining a date around when Unicorn should be removed completely from the code base. And similar things go for around what types of endpoints we're using for object storage. This is important for us because we have two different types of object storage upload support within the GitLab. We have direct and background. Direct works without any type of shared file system. Background requires shared file system. However, direct has fewer supported backends than the background version does. And so we'd like to actually switch over completely to direct because we're trying to get rid of the requirement for shared storage. However, we would like to get an understanding of how many users are actually using potentially object storage backends that aren't supported right now today for direct object storage. And also, if there are some, which ones are most popular so we can try to implement them. So those are the work items we have going on for the memory team. Some really exciting features here across improving the development practices for GitLab, driving the Puma and import projects to completion, and allowing us to take on new aspects of hopefully moving more proactive on these changes and working to address additional improvements and optimizations to GitLab itself. So thank you very much. And we can't wait for 12.10 to arrive to all of you. And stay tuned for our next release after this, which should be 13.0.